Hey friends, I want to have a little discussion with you today. So the other day, I was noticing a friend of mine struggling a little bit emotionally in a difficult situation. They just started a new job, and there were some people around her who were kind of negative, while the rest of the environment should have been really positive, and it was starting to get to them, kind of really wear down at them. And this kind of inspired me to bring up this little talk about energetic boundaries, right? And this can apply for anybody. Maybe if you find yourself in a situation where somebody's being negative, when you are yourself wanting to be more joyful, more positive, more loving and kind, right? Normally, when we think about boundaries, when we think about energetic boundaries in relationship to the tarot, we would think of the Queen of Swords, right? Being that queen where the King of Swords, he's gone off to war, so she's taken on a certain amount of masculine traits in order to run the kingdom, in order to keep things moving in a healthy kind of way, right? The Queen of Swords is very good at drawing those lines in the sand and saying, hey, this is okay, this is not okay, I can give this but I can't give that, right? People think of her as the witch with the tarot, but with a B, right? The thing is, when it comes to the Queen of Swords, she is actually quite kind. She's actually a really good friend. And I suspect that you are somebody who, you're really nice, you care for others, you have this natural giving tendency. But sometimes maybe somebody might either overstep a bound or, bring the negativity into the environment that really isn't best suited, right? So you would come into this Queen of Swords and you say, okay, this is okay, you can be this way, you can't treat me this way, so on and so forth, right? But sometimes people, they don't really take just the communication so clearly, they don't really respect that boundary. So the trick here is, well, what do I do now? What do I do about this that's going to give me some kind of a better situation, or is going to take my power back so that this person can't put me in a negative mood, can't ruin for me something that should be a positive and healthy experience for me. And I would recommend the solution to that is actually the Queen of Wands, the Witch of the Tarot. But the thing is, the Queen of Wands very much can be just like the Queen of Swords, the B Witch of the Tarot, right? So, okay, so you're a really nice person, right? And you don't like to get angry at people, you don't like to get upset. But I'm asking you to give yourself permission to use your anger, to use that element of fire, right? The air, it didn't communicate. The words that you spoke, the boundaries that you set, somebody wasn't listening. So it's time to let your energy do the speaking. It is time to let your personal strength and power do the speaking. So how do you work with this? Well, we could start out with anger, giving yourself permission to experience anger, giving yourself permission to feel the anger is a way of taking your power back. It's a way of taking your energy, and instead of contracting like you maybe would want to reflexively do when you find yourself in a situation when you're upset. Maybe if you're somebody who, is easily kind of emotionally offset in some kind of way, that anger takes your energy, takes your aura, right? Pushes it out as a healthy boundary. And I'm not saying necessarily, to outright go after somebody when it comes, to like setting those boundaries or setting that, that whatever that communication or that, reaction that you have about them, right? Fire, the energy of fire is not a negative thing. It's not necessarily a positive thing. It's a neutral force, right? Your energy, your own personal power, you can look at it in the same way, giving yourself permission to feel that anger. It's like, I'm putting up this fire, or I'm extending out my energy, this boundary, that while I'm not targeting you with it, if you're dumb enough to put your hand into the fire, you're gonna get burnt. That's just a matter of fact. It's not me choosing an action against you. So you don't have to necessarily worry about, like, am I doing something wrong? Am I, taking some sort of action that'll have some sort of negative repercussions against me when it comes to kind of a more self-defensive type of an energy, right? A lot of people would think of, this as like a karmic type of a thing, like especially if you're on the more lighter end of the magical spectrum, you would think like, okay, well, if I, act from a place of anger, then, maybe I'm creating some sort of a negative karma back toward myself. But that in itself is actually a major misunderstanding of what karma actually means, of what karma actually is. Our Western idea of what karma is about is highly misconstrued. It's not actually you do an action and then there's some sort of reaction in return. Karma actually means memory. So, for example, if you have certain behaviors and you notice that there is a backlash or some sort of a return pattern that happens as a result of those behaviors, what's really going on there is that you have stored within you, within your body, within your mind, within your emotions, whatever, patterns, repeated patterns, right? If you have like family karmas, for example, like if you have a tendency to behave in a certain way, like your parents acted a certain way and you picked up that behavior from them, that would be karma in the sense that you are repeating a continued cycle, repeating an energy, right? So stepping aside from this incorrect idea of karma as a reaction, what you're doing when you're creating this fire energy, you're creating this wall, is you're reestablishing your energetic sovereignty. You are reestablishing your center as somebody who is worthy of being treated with respect, who is worthy of being treated kindly, who is worthy of just having a positive experience, right? And you can sit in that anger. You're not attacking the person. You're not taking the anger out on them, but you give yourself permission to feel upset about the situation in such a way that you are like, I'm not going to let you treat me this way. I'm not going to let you, behave in a way that negatively impacts me, okay? Now, this energy, this communication through your energy that, makes a person have a little bit more of a realization that, okay, that if I behave in this kind of way, that there are consequences for my behavior toward another person, and they back off, right? But you're still feeling upset, right? You take that upset energy now and you have a moment for it to cool a little bit, and that upset, that anger turns into frustration, right? Kind of cools a little bit. You're still in that same kind of energy. That frustration gives you a chance now to continue to really think to yourself about your values and your boundaries. I know that people shouldn't treat me this way, and I know that this is why I got upset, and that I know my getting upset about being mistreated was my body saying this is not okay. Just kind of in the same way that, I would expect that you wouldn't want somebody to bully you or somebody that you care about, or if you see some injustice in the world that you feel anger about it, because that's your body, your intuition's way of communicating that something is not right and that some sort of action can be taken in order to remedy this, or at least that you want to be able to remedy this, right? You sit on that, you mull on that frustration that comes when the anger cools a little bit. This is going to help to kind of solidify that boundary, that energetic boundary, that when you got angry, your energy expanded out, right? That you being where you decided, I'm going to take up this space because I have the right to have a better experience. Now you move into that frustration, it kind of gels, kind of really solidifies that boundary, that energetic boundary for you, right? And now the frustration, you chew on that for a little bit, and then that cools down a little bit to where it kind of moves into this dignity. You're right, like, yes, you know what? I do, in fact, deserve to be treated in a more positive way. I do, in fact, deserve to have a better experience. When you move from that frustration into the dignity, that dignity in knowing who you are, that dignity in knowing that you have something valuable to contribute, that you are, somebody who is not only warm and kind and giving, but is strong within yourself, right? That is where you're starting to move out of these uncomfortable negative energies and experiences more into the positive, right? You know, okay, I am a good person. My boundaries are okay to have. It is fine for me to, protect myself. That same warmth, that same fire that is able to protect that is able to destroy, that is able to harm. It's the same energy that you can use to express warmth, right? You have this confidence in yourself now that you reestablish, that you recenter yourself in, that gives you this ability to, show kindness to others, to be able to have that smile, that genuine smile when, you meet a stranger, or when you offer some sort of compliment or some sort of kindness, or just being yourself, being in that environment, that positive energy, right? So what we're doing here, we are taking this fiery energy, right? We expand it out. We deal with the situation. We come to realize why we felt the way we did, right? We have those boundaries. We solidify in our sense of who we are, what we have to offer. And then that warmth, that after it's cooled down to the point to where if somebody, comes in contact with you, they don't get burned, but they just get the warmth from you, then that warmth you use to create a more positive experience for yourself. We have that Queen of Wands energy, right? Okay, friend, hopefully this is helpful for you. Hopefully this is a good reminder that you, in fact, are allowed to be, we'll say, that witch, right? You are allowed to step into that power and have that fiery energy back off, so that way you can reestablish yourself, reestablish your boundaries, reestablish your, sense of self, and really come back into that positive energy and mindset with people understanding what is okay and what is not okay. If you're looking for any readings, go ahead and head into my channel, and I'll see you in the next one.